minute?
Depends on what time we get out.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. It is 6 o'clock on Tuesday night. Little election going on today. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let the record reflect that all members of the council are present, save Mr. Garrett, who is not. And I believe Miss Malcolm is on the phone. Lee, are you there?
I certainly am.
Great, thank you. Moving to the city administrator update, Logan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. Just want to give you a heads up. Next week, I have a service delivery strategy amendment coming to you. Been working with the county on updating a couple things. We couldn't get everybody's amendments in order right away for this agenda, but just know that a couple minor amendments are coming up next week. And that's all I'm going to.
That was pretty quick. Any questions for Logan? Moving to Chris Bailey, Central Services.
I'm not gonna be that quick. CDBG 2020, the stormwater project is in process. Right now, they're on Hubbard and East Washington. Silt fence, everything's installed, delivering material, working kind of in close quarters. It'll be an ongoing project over the winter, into the spring, hopefully as clean and quick and neat as possible. Plaza Phase Two, the roof is 99% done on the remainder of that facility, the remainder of the building. The exterior renovation and rehab started yesterday, so that's moving along. We're finally able to get materials and whatnot in possession. Leaf season started yesterday as well. It's a little slower this year, I think, falling than it was, I don't know, the last forever. So we'll take that till we get to a couple of cold, rainy days, maybe this week. I think it'll speed up things. And then the only other thing I've got, don't forget, community cleanup event, December 4th at the end of our bicentennial celebration week. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey? Quick and painless here right now. Committee information, moving to finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Thompson, would you please read the report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gregory. The financial status report you have before you is as of September 2021. We have a new transparency tool. You can go to our website, which is monroega.com, go to departments and finance, and you can see all our up-to-date financial information there. I'll give a kind of a brief overview of that at next month's meeting. We have applied for the Public Safety and First Responder Supplemental Grant from the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget for public safety, which is fire and police. So we hope to hear something back from that in the next couple of weeks. We've also submitted application for federal grant for stormwater and sewer lift station rehab to also the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. And the 2022 operating and capital budget will be available to you later this month. I appreciate everybody that showed up for that meeting and the good discussion that was had. And that will be on the agenda for adoption in December. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Beth. Are there any questions for Ms. Thompson? I want to go ahead and say, Beth, I know that y'all have probably put in 4 months' work on that budget. I mean, I know it's consistently throughout the year, but there's a lot going on in this city, and I appreciate your staying on top of that. Moving to Airport Committee, I'll take this one. Chris Bailey?
Thank you, sir. Fuel transactions are still really good at the airport with avgas fuel sales. Right now, we're reordering a full truckload about every other month, which we've never done before. And then to update our terminal building schedule, this is the first time since I've been involved with the airport that I've actually seen a pushback of bid dates and construction dates for an awarded project by the state. We're pushed back to where we're not bidding. Essentially, in the past, I've brought it to y'all this month, It'll probably be January or February before I bring you bids, and then construction will be sometime in the spring, just because of the delay of everything with surveys, soil tests, construction, labor, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty much kind of the nature of the beast, I think, all the way around right now. And that's the airport update.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chris? How are we looking on new hangars? How many calls are on order right now?
It's slow. We've probably got 4 or 5 interested parties that are wanting to build some type of hangar, be it a single use or T-hangars, but everything's slow right now, getting everybody kind of coordinated and meeting and just, yeah. And I think that's going to be the way it's going to be. But, you know, maybe in the spring, there should be something kind of in tandem with the terminal building, the maintenance building still there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Solid waste, please.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Got a couple of updates on the transfer station improvements. Fairbanks scale will be in this Saturday to install the new scales. And timeline should be 2 weeks before they complete it. And then we will be setting up a temporary scale. And I do want to mention that the general public will not be allowed to dump during those 2 weeks from November the 5th to November the 22nd. It's going to be a one-lane traffic, and the tear weight, the trucks have to have stored tear weight, so they won't be allowed to come in and go out. So they will not be able to dump during that 2-week period. Also on tomorrow, the software company will come in and convert the software and upgrade it to make sure the software is compatible with the new scale system. We've installed the odor control system. It'll be activated once we get the solution. We're still waiting on the barrels that actually activate the odor. Don't know what flavor it's going to be, but it'll be a little bit better than what's up there right now. But it has been installed, so we're just waiting on the solution. Also, the walls, we repaired the exterior wall. There were some holes in it, and pressure cleaning, that's been done. We also cut the trees on the entrance side of the transfer station to make preparation for the privacy fence that's coming along. Also, on the transfer station tonnage, we deposited over 7,900 tons. We're trending a little bit less than 400,000 compared to September last year. And actually, on the recycling, the only thing I want to mention on the recycling, 65-gallon cart, is that the Monday customers we're a little bit off track the last few weeks, off schedule. They're having to go through the inspection part of it, and the reason the Monday customers, because you're the busiest customers we have, the most active recyclers, so it's taking a little bit more time, and we also have had some staffing issues with some sickness, but we anticipate getting back on track before the end of the year. So it's really going to be an evaluation process anyway. Glass customers, we still increasing participation. We collected over 3 tons this past month of September. And that's all I have. I take any questions you might have.
All right, is there no question? Streets and transportation, please.
Thank you, sir. So you have the report in front of you, but I'll hit on some things that's not in there. So the LMIG 2020 and 2021 wrapped up with all the striping and markings on the roadway. That was on Washington, Pinecrest, and Bryant. Finally got that done. Along with those roads, we also had Alcovey, Walker Drive, Carwood, Mayfield, and Cherry Hill. Those other 5 streets were also restriped and marking replaced. Let's see. West Marable, Nile, Green Street, and Mayfield, where the water line project was done, going out toward Publix. We finally finished that up. Somewhere almost 500 tons of asphalt was put out there. That's almost 30 loads of asphalt our guys put down, pretty much by hand. So they were glad to be done with that. Right now, you'll see us, we're down in the park down here in Childers, starting to put up some holiday lights. It's upon us. So I've got 15 days to try to, try to light that place up, November the 18th. So hopefully everybody will turn out for that to see all the kids. Let's see, and the only other thing I have is, Chris already mentioned it, but leaf pickup, our seasonal leaf pickup did start yesterday. As he's mentioned on social media, we follow the residential trash route, so yesterday we started on Monday's route. Today's the end of Tuesday, we're still trying to catch Monday. So just understand, we're staying on top of it, trying to go as fast as we can, but that'll be the order we'll go in. We also ask that citizens try to leave limbs and bricks and batteries, all those extra things out of the leaf piles. It would help speed up the process for us. So that's all I have, if I'll answer any questions.
All right, appears there are no questions. That's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving to Nathan Little, Utilities.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Thompson, you have the Lake and Telecom report.
Yes, sir. The one thing I want to touch this month, you'll see there's only one thing on my report, and that is material timelines. It's bad enough when we have a hard time getting wire and other components for the electric system, but our last bid on transformers was 52 weeks. I'll restate that. That's 1 year. That means if a developer comes in tomorrow, gets his preliminary plat, I cannot supply his energy by the time his timeline is ran out in our development regs. That is the same thing with Walton EMC, the other provider in our footprint, all other EMCs in the area and the cities. The United States has built almost 10 million homes in the past 12 months. That's a minimum of 5.5, 6 million transformers. We do not have the manufacturing capacity on a good year to build that many transformers. So I've talked to our code department, our ladies downstairs. Before anyone pulls an electric permit, we have to meet with the electric department. We have to discuss their timeline. We have to discuss what their needs are and whether we can serve them in their allotted timeline. Our plan, or our first priority, is to make sure that when we have damaged equipment in the system, that we can provide that existing customer electricity. That's the first priority. We have 5 or 6 different contingencies in place to make sure we can serve those. Luckily, we did have this Madison Avenue project that popped up. We bought, 60 or 70 new overhead transformers for that project. On a normal day, we would sell those back to a remanufacturer to have those remanufactured, but we're going to keep every one of them, and that'll help us in keeping our supplies for existing customers there. But we bought transformers for Meadows Farm. We ordered them in March. We were given a 18 to 20 week lead time. We will not have the whole amount of those transformers shipped until almost February. So the lead times we're given are not the real lead times anyway. Gresco, the largest provider to EMCs in the state of Georgia, is no bidding. They do not know when they can get the transformers, and they don't know what they'll cost. So they're just not putting out a bid. That is happening across our industry in the telecom. Old Castle will no longer bid pull boxes until the third quarter of next year. And several duct manufacturers have enough orders in place to take up their entire manufacturing capacity until the third quarter. So that's the reality we're at. We're going to do whatever we can to make sure we can provide the existing customers, and we will help developers and home builders plan their project and see if it meets their timeline. But every new development you see right now is a minimum of a year from getting electricity, minimum. And that's probably going to go out further. And those timelines ramped up from 20 weeks to 52 weeks in less than a month. We have, Logan approved us to do an emergency purchase. We have some that are supposedly on a 35-week lead time that can get 4 or 5 of the smaller projects we have in town up and running, but I'll believe them when they show up. So unfortunately, that's my report for tonight. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Thompson? Well, thank you, I guess. Mr. Mr. Middlebrooks, water, sewer, gas.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Just a couple of updates on some of our bigger projects. We're back on the 186 gas line, the 6-inch. We have about a mile left to lay, and we'll be finishing that one up. Then we'll head over to Old Monroe, Madison. We got about 7 miles over there that run, so those are coming along fairly well. The Alcoa River 138 sewer extension, like I said last month, the gravity line's in. The contractor has the pump station or the wet well set. So, and the force main's almost completed as well. So it's moving along. The 30-inch raw water, 20-inch finished water. We're still waiting on some permits from Transco and Georgia Power, and we got a few environmental permits we're waiting on from EPD. We was hoping to have that one out to bid in December. Looks like it may be January. And then that's all I've got, other than we're starting to experience some of the similar stuff Brian mentioned. Currently, we can't run any gas services, completely out of risers. And we tried to place a pipe order last week, and they wouldn't even take the order for 8-inch sewer pipe. So it's starting to affect us as well. PVC, yeah.
Would you anticipate any effects on the sewer plant rehabilitation?
Well, I think we're already seeing some delay in shipments of the equipment. But price-wise, I think it's all locked in.
Any other questions from Mr.
I guess I have a question both for Brian and Rodney, I guess, with the supplies they are. I mean, should we even be considering approving new subdivisions?
So that's something staff and I've been talking about, is how some of these new proposals work with our development regulations and our existing codes. So that's something we're taking a hard look at, and we'll advise as soon as possible. But I think it's a valid question.
I wanted to see, I guess, for any material issues, but at a certain point, there's got to be a time where folks start to panic a little bit. So
That's already happened. And they're
order
doing panic
10 times
orders.
more than they need.
And so hopefully some of this will clean up middle to end of next year with some of these panic orders, those POs being pulled back. I think that's exactly what the Old Castle manufacturer said. They raised their price 150% and their orders went up.
Fear.
Yes.
So there could be a light at the end of the tunnel sooner than 52 weeks.
You never know, but the transformer guys, the problem with them is they've got a special type of steel they use in the core, and it's hard to get, it's hard to manufacture, and plate steel and any kind of steel has gone up about 325%. So that's one thing I didn't say. Our costs for these transformers are up 50, well, not just transformers, everything. Our costs are up tremendously. Now, I have contacted all the developers that normally work in this area that I have contact with and told them, look, if you've got a plan, you need to come see me early. By our rules, I can't order anything until they write me a check. But what some of them have said is they're not sure how this timeline will work with their loans for their project, and I understand that. But I would hate for them to go borrow money and me not be able to serve that. So we've got out to everyone we can get out to, and we've let them know.
On the positive side of things, water's flowing to Loganville?
Yes, when they'll take it.
Well, I have a question to, I guess, Logan and,
Yes, ma'am.
and the attorneys. I would say that as long as we are completely transparent on our supply chain and what is happening, then it's up to the developer to make the decision whether they're going to apply for the permits or not. Once a development's approved, is that correct?
We're analyzing that right now, Ms. Malcolm. One of the things we don't want to do is create a will serve letter for someone who wants to do a development when in fact we know we can't provide electric or sewer or gas or water to the site. So it is a two-way street there. Yeah, they've got some risk, but we also have some risk as well. So we want to be able to create the proper path for the developers or the builders, but we want to be realistic with the timelines as well and make sure that works within our development regulations.
That seems fair, I understand. I have one more question or one more comment regarding utilities and the fact that there was a lot of concern at Felker Park recently that the lighting was poor or non-existent, and there was a safety issue, and I understand the city stepped in and offered to get those street lights or property lights repurposed or refurbished and hopefully back on so that the parents wouldn't feel that their, vehicles were at risk, their children were at risk, and I'd just like to commend whomever, whether it be Brian or Chris or a composite of many, that we stepped up and were able to do that.
Good for y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Any other questions?
Well, back to, you had asked a good question earlier. about-
Yeah, I'm sorry. Why are they not taking the water?
We're not really sure yet.
Whether they take it or not, I mean, I remember the contract, it's a minimum $1 million a day, so.
They do.
Whether they, it's a pay or.
Take or pay.
Take or pay, excuse me. They have $1 million minimum now and a $2 million maximum now with an option to go up to 3.
Right.
Is that right? So, yeah, so once we turned it on, I'll have to go pull the contract, but they owe us 1 million gallons per day at the contract rate every day, due every 30 days, regardless of whether they actually drink the water or not.
Perfect.
But you don't know why they're not taking it.
I think there's a little bit of fear how they're gonna run the system. We're in the process of trying to get control of their tanks through our SCADA so that we can monitor it, which would make it a lot easier to operate. The issue with that was the meter that they insisted they had to have didn't have the right inputs or outputs for our SCADA. So they've had to bring some contractors in it's taken about 2 months to get as far as they've gotten now. We think we're almost there, but that will give us full control of their system to where we can operate it from our plant.
We're going to be having an operations meeting pretty soon just to make sure all those little kinks are ironed out as far as the SCADA that Rodney's been talking about.
They're taking about 2 days a week right now. Net and Alton.
All right, Rodney, thank you. Mayor, that's all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Little. Larry Bradley, Public Safety.
We'll go to the fire department first, the Chief Dykes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. You have the monthly report for September in front of you. See that we had 195 incidents, 2 of those being fires of significance, one in a residential dwelling and one in a commercial structure. That is right on par with our incident data for the past 4 years. One thing I would like to point out in the breakdown of incident types, we've got one in there that's called a carbon monoxide incident, and wanted to take a brief minute just to remind folks now that we're getting into fall, the fall season, heaters going on. If you have gas, anything in your house, please, please, please install a carbon monoxide alarm. The carbon monoxide incident that you see listed on this report was an incident that occurred at about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Call came into Walton County 911 for their carbon monoxide alarm going off. Our guys responded. Their carbon monoxide level in the home was in the hundreds. So with carbon monoxide, there's the amount of parts per million and the duration of time that you were exposed to that. And when you start considering that we had a significant amount of carbon monoxide in the home after hours, carbon monoxide's colorless, odorless. So without that alarm, that could have been a very bad situation. So just wanted to make sure that that's passed along to everybody. Please, if you have gas utilities of any kind in your home, have a carbon monoxide alarm, and let it do its job, because that's, a lot of times people don't know that they have a problem until they're symptomatic, or if you're asleep, you may never know that you had a problem. Also on there was the incident distribution map. We could see that everything's pretty much centralized as we normally see with both the middle of town and then the 138 corridor. However, the month of September, we did have a little bit of higher concentration of incidents on the north end in the high school vicinity. And like I said, two fires of significance, but still relatively low amounts of fire loss, and I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Chief? We move to the police department, Chief Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. You have our numbers before you as well. Something significant is, we should continue to see the reduction in calls for service, which is a positive thing, which is what we want. We're down about 87 calls for service from this time last year. Our area checks are up a couple hundred. And something I want to correlate with those calls for service, you'll also see on our Part A and Part B crimes. Part A is down from this time last year. Part B is up, which those are more of your misdemeanor type crimes. Our arrests are up, so these officers are definitely doing their job. Something I want to brag on, just in the last few weeks, we had 2 separate burglaries in progress that came out. One on October the 10th over here on 4th Street, and our officers responded quickly. We were able to get on top of the 2 individuals. A foot pursuit ensued immediately after that. We apprehended the subjects, recovered a gun, drugs off of them, and we believe the vehicle that we also recovered out of the parking lot was stolen. These individuals were not from our county. They were from Newton County in the Covington area, so that was a good arrest. And the second one was a burglary up on Irving Street, where the homeowner had one of those Ring camera systems. We're able to communicate that to our dispatch, which relayed out to officers. And we actually were able to make contact with this individual. Of course, another foot pursuit ensued, but and he had already changed clothes and everything. But because of the information, and I would encourage, as we go into November and December, the holiday season, this is typically when crimes start ramping up for us. And we had a meeting this morning with our business owners as well, trying to just educate people on deterrence, taking those safety measures of locking your door stuff. But those camera systems play a big role for us as far as disseminating that information out. And we said this morning to our business owners, a lot of time people want our personal cell phones or our city cell phone numbers, and I would just encourage, make sure you make those 911 calls, regardless how minimal you think the situation is. Make that call, because if you can get that information to our dispatchers, they immediately put that information out over the radio to our officers, and the closest one's able to respond. And it just shows you, just in these 2 incidents here, how quickly we can be on top of it and effectively make those arrests. Second, I'd say we had just had our DEA drug take back. We do those annually every year, and it's amazing to me how much prescription medications, those scheduled narcotics we get off the streets. Those 50.9 pounds of prescription drugs that we took in on that one particular day. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions if you should have any.
Any questions? That's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chiefs. Thank you, Larry. Planning and Code, Ms. Malcolm. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, that's okay, Lee. We just didn't have a real good connection.
The code office report you have before you, we've just got a few highlights to go over. We had 113 code inspections in the month of September, had 11 new businesses.
Can you speak up a little bit, Patrick?
Trying. Had 11 new businesses open in September, 6 that were closed. A couple of those were just change of ownership. Major projects ongoing, obviously, is the Monroe Pavilion project, MAB, and the row still ongoing at that time. The city marshals removed 74 signs from the roadway, wrote 312 repair cleanup orders, and did re-inspections, investigated 3 tampering cases, wrote 7 citations on those, had 14 hours of post-training. The actions of the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Commission are there as well. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I did want to point out two things. So we're working currently on some updates to our fee schedule that hasn't been updated in some 20-plus years. So we're working on that for permitting and development. And also, we're going to be talking to you about some changes to the occupational tax certificate fee schedule as well. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Are there any questions for Patrick? You good, Lee?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Economic Development, Mr. Bradley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Project, would you mind sharing that report with us?
I'd be happy to, thank you. In the report, those are some images from Fall Fest and the Bicentennial 5K. I want to thank Councilman Dickinson for his volunteering time and helping coordinate the 5K. It went great. We had 130 runners, which is a lot for 5Ks these days post-COVID. You can see it was foggy in the morning, but then it turned into a beautiful day. And attached to the report, the additional pages are actually a report from Placer AI, which is the smartphone data. It tracks apps, so that's how we get numbers of how many devices were in that downtown boundary. And you can look through that report, just get a lot of information on the kind of traffic and what consumers and customers are doing. But on October 9th, you'll notice that there were 20,000 devices in downtown Monroe. That is a lot. So that's the biggest event, Fall Fest, we've ever had. So amazing city crews and volunteers and businesses and just people had a great day. So glad we pulled that off. Coming up at the end of this month is our bicentennial celebration. So there's going to be a lot of details and events at the very end of this month. Going into the first week of December, we'll have the Christmas parade of our bicentennial celebration here in the City Hall parking lot on the 30th, which is the actual anniversary of becoming a city. And we're also doing a call for photos right now to collect 200 photos to go into our time capsule that'll be buried and not opened until 2121. That's online. I'll send out a link to all of you later so you can share that and submit your photo of what Monroe means to you. And we have a lot going on. Last thing I want to mention is to recognize Wayfarer Music Hall. They were awarded a 2021 Georgia Preservation Award by the Georgia Trust. So that's a big honor. It's a state, they look at projects all over the state, and this is an award of historic preservation for the music hall and where Southern Brewing is, that entire building there. So that was a great project that we helped make possible as a city with the redevelopment grant fund to that project.
That's awesome, Sadie. Does anybody have any questions for Sadie? I know Fall Fest was awesome, and we got a big lineup coming up the next couple months.
So many events coming up. Light Up the Night is this Thursday. Sunday is Farm to Table. And then we're into the magical light parade, which Chris mentioned. And then holiday candlelight shopping. I mean, it's going to be packed from here on out for the city.
It's huge. Awesome. Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Ross, Sadie. Moving to Parks, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, ma'am. Couple of quick updates. Pilot Park got new mulch about 2-3 weeks ago, best I can remember. We were actually, I guess, kind of awarded with a photo shoot by Burke Play South, who we bought the equipment from to be featured in their 2022 catalog. So that was kind of cool. Hopefully it's something like dramatic, not just like a park bench or something. But we'll take what we can get. Childers Park, the bridges have all been repaired. I think they were finishing the very last one today. So that'll be ready for lights to go up in the park. And mulch will be delivered tomorrow, put in the dog park and then around benches, around the slides, and some areas that need it. Matthews Park, restrooms, and then for Pilot 2, looks like January is going to be the scheduled delivery date. Once again, right in the middle of the worst part of the year that we could actually install them. Pavilions right now are 10 to 12 weeks out from the company that we ordered those from, but it was a significant savings, and staff just determined that to save $80,000, it was worth an additional 10 to 12 weeks. And then we had a study of Matthews Park by a third-party company. And we haven't gotten the report back yet, but I can tell you from what I saw, there was very little in there to actually catch and whatnot. But they're going to give us a plan to get everything back going, a feeding schedule, fertilization schedule, different things that we can do to kind of bring the pond back to life. So hopefully we'll have that going here in the next month or so. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
Thank you, motion. Moving items for discussion, public hearing rezone 140 Blaine Street. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a rezone at the city's request from a B3 to a planned commercial district of the 140 Blaine Street site that currently houses the PD and the municipal court, and it'll be before you next week for your vote.
Thank you. Any questions for Patrick?
One note, we'll have a presentation from Lord Atkins Sargent, who assisted us with this project. We're all pretty excited to present that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Question, I guess, is, I know this is for the rezoning, but you've also got the redevelopment plan attached to everything here.
Correct.
So if we approve the rezoning, what is the next step to be taken?
Yeah, so probably what we'll do there is work with the Urban Redevelopment Agency that we have set up alongside the DDA to then issue some RFPs for developer interest for the various phases of the project. There's the residential components, there's the mixed use, and then the commercial reuse. So it's not gonna be a very quick process, but that's probably how we'll go down that path.
And I guess it's just a question, because I don't understand anything about redevelopment, but Chris talked earlier concerning, you know, the roof on the whole building and the exterior work that's being done. How does that play into?
It preserves the building structure on the reuse side so that it can actually be rehabbed and reused. So whatever we're doing right now is not going to impact the redevelopment of it. Really makes it a little bit more marketable,
Okay.
especially the roof. Then what we're doing on the exterior is just kind of a very light facelift, some painting, taking down that old signage, very light stuff. But it really just helps advance us getting it to the next level.
So we're looking for someone else, we will be looking for a developer to actually spend the money to build on or add on or redo this kind of thing.
Yeah, within the plan. Now, there's some flexibility built into the plan, but what you see is pretty much what we're after, as far as the residential mixed use and adaptive reuse of the.
But would they be buying property? Or would we retain the property and lease it, or?
More than likely, they're gonna wanna buy it.
Okay.
More than likely. There's a lot of those mechanics we've gotta work out when we get to the RFP situation. But this is really step one to get
I
there.
mean, the master plan is amazing looking. If we had something just like that, I think it'd be wonderful. I just don't, I'm still trying to put a grasp on how we get to that point, I guess.
It's all about generating the interest first and foremost, and then having the product really off the shelf, that they can pull this plan, it's ready, it's approved by you all, and then they can go in the multiple phases. It can be 3 phases, it could be 5 phases. But we have a whole set of uses that are allowed, uses that are discouraged. We have the design elements that we want to see. So we hope it creates a lot of marketing buzz.
Okay.
And we'll be working with some other contacts like ECG, Economic Development folks, to try to get the word out. Especially on the commercial side, that's going to be a little bit harder task to find, but I think the residential component will be a good seller.
Good, thank you.
It looks awesome.
Yeah, that really is exciting. Moving to public hearing, approving the Valdosta Housing Authority to issue revenue bonds for local apartment rehab project. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a little bit of a weird situation here, but we were approached by the bond counsel for the Valdosta Housing Authority to issue revenue bonds for a local apartment complex here in town off Plaza Court. And what this is interim financing put in place by the Valdosta Housing Authority. There's no outlay from the City of Monroe or the City of Monroe Housing Authority on this. We're just simply allowing them to operate within our jurisdiction. The Monroe Housing Authority just yesterday, and I have it here if anybody wants to see it afterwards, passed a resolution authorizing this use, and then we have to pass our own. So, I mean, that's the gist of it. It's a low-income tax credit housing product currently, and in order to maintain that portfolio, they have to do some significant upgrades. So Valdosta Housing Authority is issuing $11 million in bonds, and about $3 million, I think, are going to be used on this project. So it's going to be pretty significant overhaul for it.
The reason that we're involved in this resolution is because it's low-income tax credit project.
We're involved kind of as a secondary conduit to allow them to operate in our jurisdiction.
Because of that tax credit situation,
Yes,
right?
sir. Paul may want to add something.
Yeah, simply because it's called an extraterritorial bond, and since they are not, it's the Monroe Housing Authority's area and jurisdiction. It's y'all's jurisdiction, and so we just have to sign off on it. There's no financial obligation, no financial dealings whatsoever with the city. It's just a conduit to allow them to get these bonds issued to do this rehab. But it's a significant investment in that project over there. I think it's about $3 million, as Logan said.
And that will upgrade our affordable housing inventory.
Correct. I think it's about $60,000 a door that they're going to be upgrading those units. So it's quite a significant investment. But yes, it's a mandate under the revenue bond laws because they are outside their jurisdiction. That's the only reason for our needing to pass this resolution.
So we're approving it next week, and are we going to have the resolution ready next week too?
Yes, the resolution's already ready. Bond counsel for Valdosta Housing Authority prepared it. I reviewed it, and it's fine. You'll have a public hearing on it next week, which is required, which has already been advertised, and then you will have the resolution for your consideration on whether or not to pass.
Thank you. Moving to the public hearing of the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition appeal at 1238 South Madison Avenue. Patrick?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is just simply an appeal of the action taken by the Historic Preservation Commission in denial of a certificate of appropriateness for demolition for that address at 1238 Madison Avenue.
Thank you. Any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, we'll move to the second reading of the GMEBS amended and restated defined benefit retirement plan ordinance. We'll have the second reading at next week's council meeting. And then the first reading of the zoning ordinance code text amendment number 12. Patrick?
Yes, sir, and that's just exactly what it sounds like. It's an amendment to add the conditional use of private sewage treatment facility in a table, and also to remove the restriction on the size of planned districts in our zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, we'll move to the TFRA resolution authorizing the Valdosta Housing Authority, which is what we just talked about, to exercise its powers for the purpose of financing a proposed multifamily housing project.
That's it.
So we'll read the resolution. Okay. Moving to the mayor's update, a few things. First, we have George Walton students here from AP Government, right? Thank you, and your teacher decided to not show, right? And what's your teacher's name? Mr. Wilson did not show to the council meeting. That his students went out on a limb to show up, and I appreciate your being here. Also, Chief Watts and Chief Dykes both entertained the third graders from George Walton last week. I got to see the police cars, the police dog, got to hang out and spend some time with me, which I'm sure thrilled them. But we had a great time, and it's always great welcoming George Walton Academy. Congratulations to you Georgia fans. But I do want to say this. See the guy in the ugly orange shirt right there? Tennessee fan. We already beat them.
Leave him out of it.
And then two more things. David Dickinson, while he did put together the 5K the other day, ran the virtual Boston Marathon, right, last week?
2 weeks ago.
26.2 miles.
Monroe.
That man's got a good heart. And then we, again, have an election tonight, and I just want to congratulate those who have chosen to run and to serve our community. So no matter the results, Tyler, we're pretty sure you're going to be back. David Ross and I actually have opposition, and we'll know something a little bit. The polls close in 15 minutes. And I do need a motion to amend the agenda for an executive session. So having a motion on the floor by Mr. Bradley. Mr. Ross Bradley, is there a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Larry Bradley. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Now I need a motion to adjourn to executive session, please.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ross Bradley and a second by Mr. Tyler Gregory. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. We'll adjourn to executive session. And thank you for the students and for Mr. Wilson for not, for coming, but you don't have to stay through executive session. Y'all can just head on out and we'll forgo the last couple of minutes. But there are new students who showed up, so is there anything I need to sign before you go? Come on up, we'll do that, and then y'all can all take off.